Now we continue our focus on Ukraine, but from a different perspectives. So the role that academic institutions like the ETH Zurich play in recovery and rebuilding efforts. In this next segment, we will hear from two remarkable personalities who are at the forefront of the ETH's contributions to Ukraine resilience. President Joël Maison and Lisa Jasko, ETH advisor for public policy initiatives and member of Parliament of Ukraine, will join Dr. Chris Lupin in an interview to share their insights and the tangible steps ETH Zurich is taking to support Ukraine in this critical time. So I'm looking forward to this interview, and I'll hand over to Chris Lupin to begin the interview. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. You can hear me now. It's a pleasure to be here and to follow after such an interesting session. It's great to see you. Thank you for being here, for making time. I'm actually quite honored to speak with my two guests in just a minute, because I think it's quite important that we demonstrate how science and innovation are powerful tools for recovery and rebuilding in the face of conflict and adversity. And this we're going to hear from real examples. It's not simply about rebuilding structures, but how to foster a resilient, innovative, and sustainable future for the Ukrainian people. So I'd like to ask Joël, my boss, and Lisa, please come in, join me up here. And here's one. And I'm going to stand here. So, first of all, Joël, what else do people in the room need to know about you when it comes to this conversation around rebuilding Ukraine?
How far you want me to go back? Kindergarten or?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about start with high school? Not go that far.
So maybe one point. I grew up in Geneva, as you can hear from my accent. And there are two things that really shaped me and kind of disappeared for a while and came back when I was president of ETH Zurich since 6 years now. First, UN organizations. As a school kid, we were visiting regularly all these organizations. There were not as many 30 years ago as today, but 17, I remember. I had to learn by heart. And the second thing is the presence of CERN. And when I became the president of ETH, it became clear that I wanted to engage this school more with UN organizations, and that's why we launched some program with ICRC. We launched a global agreement with UN in New York, because I put it always the same way. I said that in the introduction. A role of a university is to serve society, but it's not only to serve the wealthy in our society, it's also to serve those who are the weakest. Yeah. And the weakest, we know where they are: refugees camps, war regions, and this is what we do with our initiatives. That was something new for ETH, and we wanted to bring this at the highest level. And then CERN, I think it's always good to remember why CERN was founded. CERN was founded just after the Second World War to reshape the science in Europe, to re-put science at the highest level in Europe, also to have German scientists and French scientists talking to each other. When diplomacy, politics doesn't work anymore, the last link very often is the science. And when I see what's happening today, I'm a bit sad. And so I say, universities are here to build bridges and not destroy the bridges. And then finally, a little thing that happened before the war in Ukraine. I went there, I met your president for the Ukrainian, Zelensky, because we had a project with EDA together during the COVID, where, in Switzerland, we were not sure we had enough respirators at the beginning of the COVID wave. And then I said, well, if Switzerland doesn't have enough respirators, what about the rest of the world? So we built a very cheap respirator. Nobody in Switzerland wanted to build it. Stefan, maybe you can talk to your people, to your companies. So it turns out, I don't go to the history, that thanks to the help of Federal Counsel Ignacio Cassis to DEZA, we could have a production launched in Ukraine. And so I went there to present the model that we had built. Okay, the war changed a little bit the story, unfortunately, but I visited Donbass, so there was an emotional attachment for me developed towards Ukraine.
Great, thank you very much, Joel. And Lisa, who are you in the context of our conversation today? You are a fascinating human as well.
Good afternoon to everyone. So my name is Lisa Yaskov. Yes, I'm a member of the Parliament of Ukraine, the Foreign Affairs Committee. I'm also the member of our delegation to the Council of Europe. For me, I want to share that by my education, I have 3 master's degrees. I'm a political scientist. And around 10 years ago, when I was thinking where I want to do one of my degrees, because at that stage I was working in presidential administration, running communication campaigns, fighting Russian propaganda. I was looking for a university that would be covering global challenges, but also would have a public policy school. And I was looking at ETH, but at that stage there were no public schools, so I went to Oxford.
Ooh. That hurt.
This year we are founding one. You can help us.
Yes, in 2022, I had quite special moments for me where I was thinking about Switzerland, the philosophy of Switzerland, on everything that is very much connected to my life now. It's the question of peace, it's a question of war. So I remember I was in May in 2022 in St. Gallen Symposium and actually listening to Ignacio Cassis' presentation about what neutrality means. And I've heard that neutrality in Switzerland doesn't mean inaction. And then I was actually trying to reach ETH because I thought there were so many things already destroyed in Ukraine in 2022. We need more science, more technologies that would be actually helping with that. And here I am now, joining the team and hopefully working for advising on that initiatives that can bridge the science and education for a real change. And you know, for me, I've heard again today something from Ignacio Cassis, who said that our interests is not only economy, it's actually also security and peace. But how to reach that? And I really believe that in academia, when we actually can bring different initiatives together, when we're talking about, for instance, you talk about respirators, but I can give you so many examples in medicine, in the science now, how much do we need prosthetics now, and how much research do we need? Yeah. You know, we are not now a country who actually lacks expertise. We have a lot of expertise, but what we lack science and research on that. So I really think the role of ETH is huge on bridging philosophy, politics, diplomacy, peacemaking, and everything together, because it's all about the future. And the peaceful future, that's very important. We shouldn't forget about that.
Absolutely not. Thank you, Lisa. It's really
Maybe
wonderful.
A short anecdote. There is, we
just
had
a minute. Who's
2 federal councillors here. There is a third one that came in the play and made the link to Lisa. It was Alain Berset when he moved to the Council of Europe, exactly, where he said, maybe you should talk to Lisa. So that's how the story goes.
Even better. So, Joel, we have a whole slew of projects having to do with Ukraine. Perhaps you could share one of your favorites or one that's on the top of mind right now having to do with reconstruction.
So I think we have about 10 projects ongoing, and I want to talk to maybe the one that is really close to a new conference. So we had the first conference last year, and it's about rebuilding the science in Ukraine. Of course, reconstruction is very important. Of course, all what we have seen is amazing, actually, the projects that is done with the private sector. But as you know, science, if you want to have a developed countries that is performing, ideas have to come from researchers and so on. And that takes a long time. And now there is a lot that has gone. By the way, I must say, when I visited Ukraine in 2020, I was amazed by the level of digitalization that the country had. And I think this is one of the factors why you were very efficient in transforming an economy into an economy of war. And I'm just, maybe we should think about digitalization in Switzerland somehow also. We could maybe also learn from Ukraine, right?
Definitely.
And so it was a connection through US, where there are two associations in US who have launched this idea. One is the Simons Foundation. The Simons is one of the biggest foundation that is funding fundamental research all over the world, also at ETH, mainly in US, and they came to us and said, what can we do together? So we organized the first conference last year where we presented a number of projects, and that kind of pushed these 10 projects that we have developed. But one is about reconstruction of science, and now there is the National Academy of Science, who is also being participating, and we are looking for other foundations to participate. So we are in discussion with many of them. The idea is to build a pot of money of millions of euros to launch projects in Ukraine. The next conference will be in a few weeks from now, in 2 weeks from now, and where we will have concrete decisions being taken how to move forward. So I'm very passionate about this because this is at the core of what we are doing.
And I think that's thank you very much for sharing that, because it's also about collaborating, coordinating between the different entities to make sure that what's happening is appropriate and relevant for Ukraine. So, Lisa, what's on the top of your mind when we think about this collaboration and the reconstruction? Is there certain projects or collaboration which you are most favorite or top of mind?
Well, at this stage, I think we are at the stage of collecting different projects, and it starts from the projects that actually can document the damage and ending with different solutions. And yes, there is one of the projects that is called Mapping Ukraine, that's designed at ETH now, and I think that's very important to encourage to create and to implement as many projects as possible, to document from different angles. We were talking yesterday about the space. We are talking from different technologies, just for you to explain. And I never thought about that in my life until the full-scale invasion. You actually start appreciating electricity technologies and how the electricity comes to you. You start actually questioning why during the blackout I don't have that, and what kind of technology could help, whether it's green, not green, decentralized and not decentralized. When you need to go to the shelter that is safe, when you need to bring your kids to the shelter, when there is no petrol, in the beginning of the war, full-scale invasion, actually we usually we don't have so many green cars, but it came as a big problem that actually you cannot charge a car if you have a green car. I mentioned the question of prosthetics and different areas in the medicine where we have so many. We have so many medical conditions now in Ukraine with all the surgeries of our civilians and our military. it's hard to say for me, but that's incredible area for the research. So we really hope that there'll be more initiatives coming in and making a research for reconstruction. But I want to emphasize that it's not only about Ukraine. That's really like, in a good way, a research market for future technologies. I also want to briefly mention defense tech. In Switzerland, it's sensitive to talk about this, but what we do now in defense tech is unbelievable from technological point of view, and producing all these drones. Check it out.
You know what, it's good that you're proud of what your nation's able to do. And that's just really...
So maybe some, do we have time or not?
No, I'm looking at the organizers, we're actually done. Can I have 2 more minutes? 2 more minutes. Okay, we've got 2 more minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, so just about this mapping Ukraine, what is it about? It's about using AI. So we started about a year ago with this project, where the destruction has happened, not only with satellite data, because they are not always available, but using also mobile phones, everyone's pictures, combining all these pictures, putting this on a platform, so that when the reconstruction comes, you can go back to the state before and after the war. You can help civilians, for example, to make their claims, because very often there is no data anymore. And so it's very difficult to build something and to know exactly what has happened. So it's a very precise data. We have this know-how, and we are bringing this to the population of Ukraine. Another project that we have is, you mentioned prostheses, for example. That's one of the projects we have with the ICRC, and we are going with, so having all types of prostheses, very 3D printing that we can give access. So there are fantastic projects in that direction, and many more.
Yeah, we've got lots. Thank you, Joel. Lisa, you will have the final word.
Just very quickly, we were talking now about the damage on infrastructure, but there is so big need to document actually human rights damages and violations of the human rights and prisoners of war, civilians, deported children. So on the humanitarian sector, there is also a huge need for different initiatives, and I really hope that we could develop such initiatives that already exist into humanitarian sector with using technology as well. That would be the future.
Thank you. So, as you can see, 2 very passionate humans up here who I'm sure could talk for a whole hour. And last week when we just had a very brief conversation, I said, Lisa, how are you doing? He says, well, I'm okay. The missiles just didn't hit me. And it's very sobering when you're sitting here in an office in the Hauptgebäude of this wonderful institution, and you're talking to someone who's in the middle of a war. Again, very sobering, and this is really what we're talking about, how to reconstruct a beautiful nation. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Joel.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very interesting conversation. Thank you.